Hey heroes, welcome to another cosmic episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is sponsored in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to contribute and vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel, then you can sign up for an amount of your choosing over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelite. The link is in the description below, along with other places you can find me. Of all the beings within the Marvel Universe, few are more feared than the Devourer of Worlds known as Galactus. An entity of unfathomable power and a carnivore on a cosmic scale, his arrival on a planet almost always heralds the end of that world, and all life on it as their energies are consumed to sustain him. Of course, even a being such as he has a beginning, but to explore this origin we must look back 14 billion years to the time before the Big Bang. You see, just as universes are born and inevitably die, the entire cosmos itself exists in a perpetual cycle of death and rebirth. When a multiverse dies, a new one emerges in its place. The Marvel Universe as we know it began as part of the 7th iteration of the cosmos. For a fuller explanation of this multiversal cycle and how it began, please refer to my video on Captain Universe. This week our story truly begins in the 6th incarnation of the cosmos, where the concept of science was born. Nowhere was this more apparent than the planet Taa. This was a world of technological marvels, a paradise of scientific and sociological enlightenment. It was also the home of the crusading technocrat and science seer supreme, a humanoid woman named Taaia. Using a womb tube of her own design, Taaia combined her own DNA with that of a chosen donor to create a son named Galan. Following his mother's example, Galan grew up to become a science seer, a space explorer, and attained the rank of Science Master. However, in his travels to the far reaches of the cosmos and back, he discovered a terrifying, unmistakable truth: that everything he knew would soon come to an end as the universe approached its inevitable death. As reality receded, a sentient star plague called the Black Winter was spreading across the cosmos, consuming all in its wake. Elsewhere and else when, the M'Kraan crystal, an artifact containing a nexus of all realities, cracked and shattered. This caused a fatal radiation sickness that swept across time and space. These creeping plagues were discovered by Galan, but no cure could be found. Eventually, Taa was the only planet left in the last remaining universe of the 6th Infinity, and their population was dying. However, Galan decided that if he was going to die, he would do so as he lived, in the pursuit of science, and prepared for a final mission. He convinced a handful of his fellow science seers to join him, and as the Black Winter consumed everything else, these explorers became the last living beings in the universe. In this final expedition, they knew that they would either break through the ultra-flow and discover what awaited beyond space and time, or perish gloriously. They reached the center of the universe, where all remaining matter was collapsing into a single point. This big crunch resulted in the creation of a blazing sphere of primordial energy called the Cosmic Egg, which resembled an enormous star. According to some stories, Galan and his men intentionally flew into the cosmic cauldron, knowing that it would be their funeral pyre. Others suggest that they had every intention of surviving, but were struck by a mega-cosmic ray storm before they could pierce the ultraflow. In either case, the result was the same. Intense levels of radiation tore through their shielding, killing everyone on board. All except for Galan, who had become the last living being in the entire multiverse. Having taken notice of Galan, the Black Winter chose to spare his life, so that he could one day serve as a herald of destruction in the next multiverse. As his body was flooded with cosmic energies, Galan could hear a voice reaching out to him, one that claimed to belong to the sentient embodiment of the universe itself. This voice urged him to survive. It told him that while they would both soon die, they could be reborn together as something new. That while everything perished, Galan of Taa need not. In the next universe, he would be a being with the appetite of a galaxy, but even more power. He would be a ravager of galaxies. He would be Galactus. The two merged together as Galan's universe ended, making way for what came next. After the death of the sixth cosmos was the birth of the seventh. The cosmic egg exploded in a big bang that marked the beginning of the Marvel Universe. From this eruption, matter eventually coalesced into stars and planets. Echoes of energy and consciousness gave rise to new cosmic forces to embody the positive and negative extremes of time and space. Alongside his sister self, Infinity, Eternity became the embodiment of this new reality, himself a facet of a larger eternity that represented the multiverse. Galan's vessel was ejected out into this universe where it drifted for countless eons. Eventually it passed by an unnamed planet where a watcher named Eke was stationed. The Watchers, of course, are one of the oldest and most powerful races in this new reality, who earned their name by vowing to observe other races but never interfere. Eke, however, was so awed by the incredible power that he sensed inside this craft that he violated his oath by telekinetically forcing it down to investigate further. He entered trepidatiously looking for any sign of life, but initially finding only corpses. Upon discovering the unconscious form of the ship's sole survivor, he sensed a tremendous energy within and began to study it. Soon after, the being who was once Galan of Taa broke out, emerging as a creature of pure cosmic energy. Terrified by what he saw, Eke realized that this being was feeding on its own energy and would soon be afflicted by a terrible hunger the likes of which only a planet could satisfy. He considered killing it then and there, but such a direct action would be a far more grievous violation of his oath as a Watcher. Instead, he fled the ship moments before it departed, and was left to ponder the consequences of his actions and inaction. Back in space, the thing that was Galan placed the remains of his fallen comrades into a cylindrical vessel and sent them out to endlessly float among the stars. He then crafted an armored bodysuit of his own design that would help regulate his energy levels. Finally, he reshaped his entire ship, transforming it into a silent incubator so that he could continue to evolve. He drifted through space for a number of centuries before settling into orbit around the verdant planet Archaeopia. It was detected by that world's technologically advanced inhabitants, but after a cursory investigation, they elected not to tamper with the mysterious craft. It ominously orbited undisturbed for years, but eventually Archaeopia was caught in an interstellar space war. A mighty armada had spread from a neighboring star system, conquering and enslaving all in their wake. As they overtook Archaeopia, they also detected the incubacell orbiting the planet, and suspected that it was some kind of weapon. The Archaeopians decided to open the craft just as the invaders prepared to open fire upon it, but neither side could have predicted what would happen next. Just as the invaders launched a full-scale assault on the vessel, its occupant's incubation period concluded. Completely unaffected by the alien assault, the craft split open, and from within emerged the being who declared himself Galactus. Reborn as a cosmic entity, Galactus already felt the pangs of centuries worth of hunger. With a single attack, he completely crushed the invading fleet and absorbed their living energy. However, this was not nearly enough to satiate his ravenous hunger. He next turned his attention to the planet itself and consumed the life energies of Archaeopia and all its inhabitants. Escaping total extinction, a small fleet of surviving Archaeopians launched into deep space. They became a nomadic people with no real home, and thus their race was eventually known as the Wanderers. In the aftermath of his meal, Galactus touched down on the planet that he had just ravaged. A world that had midwifed his rebirth without him ever knowing it. The first of many planets that would fall victim to his ceaseless hunger. He surveyed the surface of the dead world and beheld the destruction that he had wrought. He grimly accepted his new role in the cosmic hierarchy of an unfamiliar universe and discarded any concept of guilt. However, he also refused to believe that his new power could be used only for devastation. Over the following millennia, he utilized the awesome energies deep within himself, henceforth known as the Power Cosmic, to embark on a construction project the likes of which had never been seen. Every few centuries he was forced to pause his work and prowl the stars for more worlds to feed on, but when he was finished he had created a vessel so large that it engulfed the entire Archaeopian star system, one unlike any other in creation, so massive that entire planets orbited around it. This would be a vessel fit for a god. A home for Galactus named in honor of the planet on which Galan was born, his world ship Taa 2. During his subsequent travels across the universe, he collected various artifacts, weapons, and rare animals which he kept on display within his world ship. Among the devices he obtained, perhaps the most noteworthy was the Ultimate Nullifier, a handheld weapon created by the Watcher Mnu. Deceptively small, the Ultimate Nullifier possessed unfathomable destructive capabilities. While able to completely erase any target from existence, even one as powerful as Galactus, it took extreme mental fortitude to properly wield. In the wrong hands, it could instantly eradicate the entire universe along with the wielder. Galactus, of course, was perfectly capable of firing this device without collateral damage, but rarely resorted to doing so. In addition to Taa 2, he also constructed a much smaller, spherical craft that he would often use for transport. Another device he designed and built was the Elemental Converter, a massive machine that would drain a planet of all life energy and, as the name suggests, convert it into an elemental form that he could easily consume. While none of these machines were strictly necessary for him to traverse the universe and consume planets, they served to make the process more efficient. Relatively early in his new life, Galactus came upon a group of beings known as the Proemial Gods. These entities were among the first to emerge in this reality and served to balance order and chaos in the universe's early days. As life spread and the status quo settled into place, the age of the Proemial Gods came to an end. However, one of their number, Diablerie of Chaos, resisted the notion of becoming obsolete and sought to remake the universe. He corrupted the purpose of the Proemial Gods and convinced others, such as Tenebrous, the Darkness, and Aegis of All Sorrows, to join him. This resulted in a war that claimed the lives of a number of these gods before Diablerie encountered Galactus. That marked the end of the war as Galactus killed Diablerie and defeated his two greatest supporters. Tenebrous and Aegis were then imprisoned by Galactus, who sealed them inside a structure on the edge of the universe called the Kiln. While its origins are unknown, this prison was actually a massive set of generators that drew power from the Crunch, a cascading energy surge generated by the expansion of the universe. Galactus continued to wander the universe, initially sustaining himself on uninhabited worlds. During this time, he could go centuries between meals, but as time passed, his hunger grew more frequent and more ravenous. He began consuming populated planets, justifying this by considering himself a higher being. He succeeded in discarding any sympathy he had for his victims and accepted his role as a ravager of worlds. He also came to believe that he would one day compensate for all the destruction he caused as indicated in prophecy. His purpose in the cosmic hierarchy was further cemented after meeting with two of the universe's foremost fundamental abstract entities, eternity and death. In the cosmology of this reality, these two represented the positive and negative sides of the temporal axis. Eternity was the embodiment of time and has been described as the sum total of all life in the universe, whereas death served as his natural opposite. These two concluded that Galactus represented a balance between their two extremes and allowed him to continue serving this purpose. Of course, it should be noted that Galactus is not considered an abstract entity as he still physically exists within the material universe. Although his position in the cosmic hierarchy does afford him the ability to inhabit an M-body from the dimension of manifestations. This is something that abstract entities with no real physical form generally do when communicating with corporeal beings, but certain other powerful entities are also able to do so. Despite this delineation between the material and the abstract, there is still, quite literally, more than meets the eye when it comes to Galactus's physical form, as he is somewhat beyond what one might consider a living being in the traditional sense, and some have even described him as a force of nature. While Galan and the people of Taa were indeed human-like in appearance, the same, strictly speaking, is not true for Galactus. In fact, whether appearing in person or manifesting as an M-body, he will generally look different to every species that sees him as their minds attempt to comprehend his form. This most commonly results in individuals perceiving him as having features that resemble their own specific race. However, this is not exclusively the case, as he has also taken on other alien forms on occasion. His size is similarly variable, sometimes reflecting his level of power, but he most often appears to be just under 29 feet tall. Early on in his journeys across the universe, Galactus decided to forge a companion for himself. He created this being in his own image and gave it life. However, this creation was dissatisfied with its master. Whereas Galactus was perfectly content to wander the stars and simply consume enough to survive, his new companion sought to conquer and rule with an iron fist. Becoming known throughout the universe as Tyrant, he was eventually opposed by Galactus himself, who reduced his creation's size and power considerably. This allowed the Spinsterhood, an arch-sisterhood of warrior women who opposed Tyrant's rule, to banish the would-be conqueror to an unknown corner of the universe. After that, Galactus employed a number of mindlessly loyal servants, the most notable of which being a merciless warrior called the Punisher. While its exact origins are unconfirmed, this enigmatic entity has been described as an alien cyborg from the outer rim of the known universe that was collected by Galactus. Composed of metallized living tissue, it's unclear whether or not the Punisher was originally a single being or part of a larger race, but it has demonstrated the ability to duplicate itself to create more. On occasion, Galactus has deployed his Punishers in greater numbers, but in these cases the duplicates seem to be notably less durable than the original. Another servant he once created was an adaptable program called the Cosmos Automaton. This entity was made to streamline the process of consuming populated worlds by traveling there ahead of Galactus and breaking down its target's defenses. He utilized this program for approximately 30,000 years, but there were a number of instances in which his target's population successfully reprogrammed the Cosmos Automaton and sent it back to attack its creator. While this did not ultimately save any of the targeted worlds, it did slow Galactus's feeding process enough times for him to discontinue its use. Sometime later, he decided to instead enlist a sentient being to endow with a portion of the power cosmic and serve as his herald. The true name of his first herald has been lost to time, but he eventually became known as the Fallen One after being cast out for his corrupt and violent nature. Galactus defeated and imprisoned the Fallen One, and while he escaped a number of times over the following centuries, he was always returned to captivity by his former master. It's possible that there are other undocumented heralds, like the being that was briefly seen forging ahead when Galactus visited the Earth in 1582. In that particular instance, Galactus was repelled by the Brotherhood of the Shield, who sacrificed many of their members to power a device capable of forcing him back. However, he was without any such herald when he later came to the peaceful, scientifically advanced planet of Zan-La. As he made his preparations to consume this world, he was approached by the Zan-Lavian scholar Norrin Radd, who beseeched him to find another suitable planet. Galactus remarked that had he a herald to find one, such a thing might be possible, and so Norrin Radd made him an offer. In exchange for sparing Zan-La, he would be the next Herald of Galactus. Endowed with the power cosmic and coated in a metallic, life-preserving substance, Norrin Radd was reborn as the Silver Surfer. Over the following centuries, the Surfer served Galactus, initially leading him to suitable worlds without sentient life. But over time, Galactus slowly suppressed his herald's emotions, robbing him of his previous identity and making him more willing to sacrifice populated planets. This included worlds like Jute, a planet that had been overrun by alien symbiotes, Lufam, the original homeworld of the Lufamoid race that Nebula is allegedly a member of, and Tarsus, a Kree planet on the outer rim of the Greater Magellanic Cloud Galaxy. Still clinging to some semblance of morality, the Surfer attempted to choose worlds whose population were primitive or warlike, eventually leading him to the planet Earth. The Watcher, who lived on Earth's moon, Uatu, detected the Surfer's approach and attempted to conceal the planet from him. When this failed, he warned his superhuman allies, the Fantastic Four, of the threat that was approaching their world, but they were powerless to stop it. Breaking his oath by interfering directly, Uatu attempted to reason with Galactus, meeting him atop the Baxter Building, home of the Fantastic Four. But neither argument nor armament could deter Galactus from his grim task, as he began assembling his elemental converter. The heroes bought what little time they could as Ben Grimm, the Thing, interrupted the converter's construction. Not bothering to sully his own hands, Galactus dispatched his loyal servant, the Punisher, to battle these three pests. Meanwhile, the Silver Surfer met the Fantastic Four's ally, Alicia Masters, whose kindness and spirit awakened his long-dormant emotions. Turning on his master, he sided with the earthly heroes against Galactus. In the midst of this, you may have noticed that one member of the Fantastic Four has not been present. That's because Uatu the Watcher sent Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, on a secret mission to Taa 2 to retrieve the one weapon that could threaten the World Eater. Returning to Earth mesmerized by what he saw, he placed the ultimate nullifier in the hands of his teammate Mr. Fantastic. Looking down, Galactus beheld a human wielding a device that could eradicate the universe and everything in it, the cosmic equivalent of a child holding the detonator to an atom bomb. He knew that only the Watcher could have possibly orchestrated this, but by this point it was too late. With the risk far outweighing the reward, Galactus renounced his claim over the Earth in exchange for the weapon's return. The Surfer, however, would not be spared his master's wrath, and while he was released from duty, he was also confined to the planet he'd helped save. As Galactus departed in a flash of light, he erected a cosmic barrier around the Earth that was specifically attuned to the Silver Surfer's energy and prevented him from leaving. Returning to the stars, Galactus went out in search of his next meal. Over the following years, he would take on more Heralds and consume more worlds. He would continue to be feared across the cosmos as the universe's greatest destroyer, the Ravager of Realms, the Eater of Planets, Galactus the Devourer. But that is all I have for you this week, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me. Let me give a special shout out to all of my supporters on Patreon or Ko-fi, my Twitch subscribers, and my YouTube members who help make the channel possible. By signing up for any ongoing amount on any of these platforms, you'll get your name in these special thanks here, but Patreon is the one that helps determine what topics get covered on the channel via monthly polls. And of course, if there's anything in particular that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments. But that is indeed all I have for you this week, and so until next time, true believers, Excelsior!